webinar series. This is part 3, Get Inventory on the Floor. I'm Amanda Hart. I lead our marketing team here at CribMaster. I also have Patience Wilson on the line. She's going to be taking notes for us and helping everything run smoothly. She'll be assisted today by her corgi puppy, Kevin, who's our team mascot. So if you hear anything, that's him chiming in. And I also have Mark Robinson, our senior implementation specialist, who travels around the country, helping everyone get up and running with CribMaster, helping support installation and configuration of our hardware and software. So he's super knowledgeable about how to get our machines optimal and performing to the best of their ability. So he's going to walk us through a lot of helpful information. If you guys hear any banging in the background, my apartment building decided to reinstall drywall next to me today. So I'm going to go on mute in just a minute so it's not disruptive. So to recap really quickly where we've been so far in the series, we talked a lot last week about how our intelligent software can really help you manage and monitor the usage of your inventory and replenish your inventory quickly and safely. So today we're going to go a little deeper on the hardware side. We're going to teach you how to optimize your machines and maximize space for inventory and repackage PPE and other MRO items to really make the most of the space you have in your machines. So we do have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to cut my intro a little short. Just a few reminders before we get started. Everyone's muted, so we don't get any background noise like drywall installation. We have the Q&A feature available. It's along the bottom panel, so use that for questions instead of the chat box. We do have time set aside at the end of the session to go through everyone's questions. And last but not least, we're recording the session like always so that we can send it to you guys after for a reference. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, good to see everyone. Good morning to you guys. I saw the list. Some of you I know very well and we've worked in the past. Great to see you guys again. And for the ones of you that I don't know, welcome. Hopefully I'll get to work with you here in the near future. You know, I've been with CribMaster for about 9 years now, leading a lot of projects and implementations. And I just want to talk through some of this stuff with you guys, give you some helpful hints, and hopefully, you know, give you some good pointers that you can take advantage of and take it to the field with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is basically the agenda we're going to cover today. We're going to discuss the machines, some bin sizes, what should you use, how should you package items, some best features, sort of things along that basis. We're going to then start getting into the toolbox, the Pro Stock, the Weigh Station, and the Pro Lock. And we're going to just, we're going to discuss how do you make these changes or how do you package these items and what's the best fit for your customer. So first off, we took our 4 most popular machines for expendable items. And we're going to talk through a little bit on each one of these and then get into the machine specifically. So first off, we're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss the toolbox first. This is what we typically refer to as our coil machine. It has the capacity up to 60 slots that are single small slots. This is a minimal touching machine. I know that's very important now with COVID-19 going on. This is a great machine for after you select your product, you're just retrieving it from the door, so there's very minimal touching. This is great for your PPE, and it's great for like items. If you have 4 or 5 of the same item that you're going to vend in your machines, this is great because you can designate rows of all the same coil pitch size to accommodate these items. Then we're going to move into our Pro Stock. So again, one of our most popular machines. This is, you will hear it referred to as our carousel machine. We're a 560. That's because we have up to 560 single slots that can be utilized for product. They're totally customizable based on your product size. This is another minimal touching machine. Our carousel doors actually will open or close by the push of a button, which is great. And this is another popular machine for our PPE and safety supplies. They can also be equipped with lockers as well, which can accommodate your larger items. So it's a great solution. Next, we're going to get into our Pro Lock. This is our locker machine. This is a 24-door locker that can be customizable based on your larger items. So you can adjoin doors up to 12 on a side to accommodate that item. And your shelves, it's got a 70-pound shelf weight, makes it very sturdy for your heavier items. You can stock boxes of equipment, multiple items. So it's a really good machine, especially now if you're wanting to distribute in bulk. It's great. Lastly, we're going to discuss the weigh station. This is our weight machine that operates on scales. We're going to kind of dive in a little bit on how you can configure this, what are the benefits. These are machines that can hold over 100 bins in them with free issue. So it's a really popular machine as well, and we're going to get into a little bit on each one of these machines. So after you have decided what machine is the best for you and your customer, there's a couple of things that need to happen before we deploy this machine. First is we need to get the sizing. So we at CribMaster can either do the sizing for you, or you can do the sizing yourself. We actually offer the coils, a Pro Stock platter, or weigh station bins for purchase, where you can actually size your own product if you would like. And this is very important because we want to make sure that we can get the appropriate bin or the best pitch coil right off of out of the chute here. So basically we need to know what product you're putting in this machine. Try to avoid discontinued items or like items, just because they can still be a different size. We run into a situation a lot where maybe a certain type of cowhide gloves are discontinued, but we get a like item that's sent, but that like item is still just a little bit larger or smaller than the item that you're going to put in the machine, which can throw off the sizing. The other thing that we really need, other than the like or the actual item, is we need to know your default issue quantity for your usage. Many times we will get a spreadsheet that might say I'm going to use 24 batteries in a week, but we need to know, are you planning on vending those individually? Are you going to vend 6 boxes of 4, or are you going to vend a box of 24? So stuff like that can help us make sure that we give you the correct sizing. And it's crucial, because if we don't get that kind of information, or we don't get correct sizing, it can lead to improper usage of the machine. And as you can see down below, those are a few pictures of when a coil is sized improperly. It can lead to product falling up under your coil, or not vending, or falling out of the coil. So we want to try to prevent that if at all possible. So getting started on the toolbox here. Again, this is a coil machine. This is a high security machine. Very popular, great for the PPE. I really love this machine. It's really good. You can even put the same item. If you were just wanting all gloves, you can put that same item in all 60 slots if you wanted to. And you would at least know the same coil pitch size. You know, you wouldn't have to go size a bunch of different products. You would know exactly which one it is. It's a great machine here. You will hear this terminology from me today, and from other folks who are on CribMaster about this coil pitch. So what we're referring to with this coil pitch is the gap in between the wires here, basically on this coil. So obviously we offer many more sizes than what's just on this screen right here, but this is just to show you how vital it is to make sure that we're sizing this correctly. As you can see, as we go down the line, some of these coils get a lot tighter, and those are for your smaller items or skinnier items, versus these larger pitch coils, like at the beginning, those are for your larger, fatter items, such as gloves or tape measures, things of that sort. And we can also do a dual. So you can see at the end, that's a dual coil, and that is for larger items as well. Now, when we do utilize a dual, just remember that will take up 2 of your slots. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that your number from 60 will dwindle down depending on how many larges or duals you utilize in this machine. Nitrile gloves. So these have got to be really popular right now, especially with the COVID-19. And folks have asked us, how can I vend these out of a coil machine? How can I make the best for my employees right now to keep them safe? So we can vend these out of a toolbox by the box or individual. So if we want to vend these by the box. They utilize a double dual 5-coil configuration that allows us to lay the box down long ways, and we can vend the whole box out. If you would like to vend them individually, you have a couple of options with this as well. You can actually put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs in a Ziploc bag, or you can actually shove them in a French fry container and vend the French fry container. So either one, they're both great options. It really just depends on you and your customer and what you see is the best fit there. So cotton gloves. So most of these cotton gloves, the best way that we see is to roll them like a sock. And that is where we fold them over and we pull one end over the top. That way it keeps the glove compact and it fits in the coil nicely and it just vends. That way nothing's getting hung up and it's just a smooth vend. And the cowhide gloves, we find if we actually fold those over with rubber bands in either a large or a dual coil, those usually choose to vend the best as well. That way the leather is not getting trapped under the coil or popping out. It keeps them nice and compact. Larger gloves. So if you're having problems with just a rubber band, it's really easy to put them in a Ziploc bag or shrink wrap these gloves. I know a lot of our customers will even use saran wrap and make it nice and tight and put them in there. If you see that that's an issue, try putting them in the bag or shrink wrapping them, and you'll probably get a much smoother vend out of that. And as well, we have the French fry containers. We mentioned them with the Nitrile Gloves. If you have even cotton gloves or anything, you don't want to fold them like a sock, you can always put those in the French fry container. It's always a good vend. And just to throw out there too, we're giving you guys the best practices that we see. This does not mean this is the only way. You know, if you have a way you're utilizing that works for you, by all means, keep doing it. There's more than one way of doing this stuff. These are just some best practices that we have found. So keep that in mind when we're going through this, but it doesn't mean you have to change everything that you're currently vending if it's working for you in your operation. Respirators, the N95s. This is another popular item right now that we're getting questions for. And yes, we can vend these out of a coil machine. They utilize a dual pitch, 10-pitch coil for this. And depending on the manufacturer, every manufacturer of these makes a different thickness and mask. So it might, if it's a thicker mask, you might need to put this in a Ziploc bag. The reason why is there is rubber straps on these masks. So if those rubber straps are out flopping around, they can actually get caught up under the coils, or they can rub the side walls and dividers, making it hard to vend or making the mask actually pop out. So if you see that you do have a thicker mask, just try putting them in a Ziploc bag. This should give you a much smoother vend. So now, how do I add new items? Maybe you're wanting to add gloves or hand sanitizer or something right now just to keep your employees safe. How do you make these changes? So I'm going to go ahead and show you step one of what we need to do. We need to basically get into the CribMaster client database, and we need to assign an item. So what we'll do is we'll go right in here to our CribMaster database, and you're going to select your crib. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use crib 19 right here, and say for instance I want to utilize this spot right here. Maybe this insert boxes right here, I'm not utilizing those right now. Maybe they're you know, they're just kind of not in use, and I think I can use this space. So I would double click it. Once you see this, you're going to see your field pop up. Now here is something you have to be careful for. So if you notice your item number, see how it is grayed out right here? I cannot change anything. The reason I can't change anything is because there's currently items in the bin. So just remember, before you make any changes, you're going to have to set the items in the bin to 0. So once I set it to 0 and I hit save, you will notice now that this text field right here will open up, and now I can change this item. So maybe I'm going to hit the drop down menu. So maybe I want to put hand sanitizer. I can hit the first few numbers, hit search. There it is, 009 SAN for sanitizer. It's a Purell hand sanitizer. So I can click that. And if you notice, it's going to give me the caution sign to let me know that I have made a change. And I can go ahead and put any bin quantity I want in there. I can hit 10, 12, or I can leave it at 0, whatever I would like. All I'm going to do now is hit save. It's going to let me know that all the changes have taken place. I'm going to refresh my screen. And now, as you can see, it is in the bin. Okay, so now that I've made that change, comes the physical part. So basically, the next part of this is I need to disconnect the coil. Now, if this is the correct coil pitch size, it's just an even swap, you can leave that coil in the machine. If this is not the correct even coil pitch size and not an even swap, what you'll need to do is make sure that that coil is empty, and you're going to reach your hand toward the back of this coil. When you do that, you're going to just slightly pull on that coil, and you're going to disconnect that coil from the back of that motor right there. Replace it with the correct pitch coil, and then you should go ahead and stock your product. It will be good to go into vent at that point. Keep in mind, if you were going to use a large coil, you'll need to remove that divider, move that larger coil to the center slot, and put it into the motor, because the motor will actually be above a normal positioning on a small coil. If you're going to utilize a dual coil, you're going to need a white face motor and a gray face motor, which will accommodate a counterclockwise coil and a clockwise coil. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to get into more of this on later webinars on the hardware side, but I just wanted to run through that with you real quick, just so you knew. As far as hand sanitizers, so this is another popular question we're getting. For the larger bottles, you're going to want to use larger coils in this. That'll support that bottle whenever it's trying to flow through and trying to vent. And you want to really put these on the bottom shelf. Reason why is it can make a big boom because it has significant weight, but you don't want that cap to bust or you know, fall off or anything like that. You don't want hand sanitizer on your machine, so you really need to utilize this on a lower shelf if possible. And the smaller bottles, you're going to want to use the small coils, and you might need to use a riser or V channel for it. It just depends. All hand sanitizers different sizes, so it gets back to we really just need to size this product to know what the appropriate application is for this. Safety glasses. Another popular item, we need to make sure that we're gauging the thickness of this. We need to make sure we know how thick these glasses are, how large they are, how large are the frames, anything of that sort. All safety glasses are different size. Many of you know some have rubber on the frames that can get hung up. Some just have fatter lenses. It's just we need to know what it is. So every pair of safety glasses is different. So if you change distributors or change types, don't expect those to be 100% fit because they do change. If they are in plastic wrappers, what we utilize is usually we'll take it and shake it down. We'll keep that plastic at the top, and that way we keep that plastic out of the coils and out of the sides. And that helps for an easier vent. When that plastic gets in those coils, it can really get hung up and not vent correctly. Grinding disc. So we want to place these on the bottom row as well. Reason why is, again, another heavy item, so it can make a big boom when it falls. The other thing is we don't want to damage these discs or damage the machine. If these discs are to fall from any kind of height, they can damage the drop mat that's inside of that toolbox or damage the paint on the inside of that toolbox. So always try to place them on the bottom if you can, and be mindful of the weight. So just remember, these motors are pushing all of the weight of your product. So if some of these grinding discs can weigh 2 or 3 pounds each, just remember if you're putting them in a 12 pitch coil, they could be pushing 36 pounds on a motor of those little a coil motor. So maybe put 5 or 6 or whatever you use and get that weight a lot lower, where it's only maybe 15 pounds versus 36 or something. You know, just try to be mindful of that weight. Markers, screwdrivers, drill bits, etc. We want to point these items in the same direction. We do offer a metal bar divider where it can stand the items straight up. They're awesome to use, love them, I'm a big fan. If you don't want to utilize that big bar or that bar on the dividers, just make sure that you lay on the same way. If you put the markers to the right and you put screwdrivers to the left, it's going to form an X. whenever that X is formed, you will not get anything vented. It's just going to mash up on each other, and it's going to get stuck right there. So make sure everything is flowing the same direction. Common mistakes. So avoid the tall aerosol cans or anything that's really tall that could get stuck behind the drop chute. That's going to keep the door from opening. If that lands and it's standing up, that chute door is not going to open. We do make some accessories. We make a paint can accessory that goes in a toolbox, as well as some other items, V-channels, a bunch of other stuff that we make. So really utilize our accessories with your coil machines to make sure that they're going to vent right and give you the highest possible percentage for success. And heavier items, just a touch, we kind of touched on it with the grinding disc and stuff. Make sure that we are putting the heavier items on the lower shelves. If you put them on the top shelf, it's obviously going to make the big boom when it falls, but you can really damage the product or the machine. So we really want to put those on the lower shelves if possible. So into a pro stock now. Again, this is our carousel machine. This is the one that has up to 560 slots. These are very popular. You can actually use this as a minimum security machine or a high security machine. So you can put multiple items in the same slot if you choose to. It really just depends on your configuration of what your products are. And a great thing about this is it can actually be configured at CribMaster. So if you go ahead and make your bin data and send it to us before the machine ships, or send us the bin data, let us make it. It's a small fee, but we can actually pull those dividers. This will actually save you a lot of hassle in front of your customer, because now you don't have to find boxes to put the chopsticks or the dividers in. You don't have to spend a couple hours pulling these dividers. It basically can make your machine more plug and play. So that is a service. If that's something you're interested in, obviously get with your account manager. She or he can tell you more about it, and go from there. How many slots should I have? So basically you want to make sure there's enough room to comfortably fit the item within the slot. This is something we don't want to have to force anything, and we want to make sure that we leave enough room that employees can get the product out efficiently. We don't want employees having to spend a lot of time trying to dig stuff out or going to get screwdrivers to try to pry something out. We want to make this easy for them. If you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your machine. So if you make it easy for them to get their product out of, they will take care of your machine for you. And just remember, some folks have bigger hands, larger fingers, so make it easier for them to get that product. Also, do not use a stick or a pole or anything to shove items in. Totally understand that space is premium in these. Get it. We can't use sticks or poles. This actually bows the dividers out. This is not going to make your pro stock work efficiently. You're going to have a lot of error messages, stuff like that. So make sure that we're sizing this correctly, and if it doesn't fit, don't force it. Just utilize the space available and make a larger slot. So Nitrile Gloves. Put individual pairs in plastic bags. This is something, again, you can put 1 pair, 5 pair, 6 pair, whatever you want. It's totally up to you, but just put them in a Ziploc bag, put them in there. You can really stock as many as you want. It's a great tool. It's very easy to get the PPE out. And just remember also, you can vend boxes. I want to say it's like about a 6 or 7 slot item, but you can vend boxes out of the pro stock if you want. So both of those options are available to you. And with other gloves, if they are in plastic, a lot of these gloves are prepackaged. Make sure that we pull the plastic to the top of the fingers, and we're folding those inside, placing that loose plastic in first. If we do that, we can prevent that plastic from causing jams in the carousel. Same way with the fingers on gloves. Even if they're not in plastic, make sure those fingers are going in first. That way the fingers are not coming outside of the carousel, causing those jams. So we want to keep everything internal in that carousel platter. Safety glasses. Usually these require 3 slots. Again, every manufacturer is different, but probably 90% of these, 95%, are going to use a 3 slot. And with these, we want to make sure that we also want to shake the glasses to the bottom, and we put that plastic folded over, kind of put that plastic in first. That way we're avoiding that plastic getting back out into the carousel. Tape. So what we have found with this is if we lay the tape down, this works much better. With the rubber band on these carousels, if we lay the tape rolls on their side, too many times this tape will roll above the rubber band or roll below the rubber band, which can cause a barrier, not allowing that pro stock to spin, and that can cause some problems. The other thing is if they barely fit inside of a slot, it can be tough to try to reach your fingers in and take that out because all it does is want to spin. So if we just lay it down, it's much easier for the employees to grab. So just keep that in mind. And with heavier items, we want to limit these carousel platters to 30 pounds or less per carousel. And for the larger items that have 7+ slots, that or heavier items, we really want to balance this out. We don't want to put an item that's 12 pounds on one side and then just put an item that's, or a couple items that are 2 pounds total on the other side. That can cause our carousel to sag or be off center. So we really want to try to balance it as much as possible on keeping the weight distribution equal on those carousel platters. One slot items, that's a question that we've gotten a lot where folks will always want to know, how do I utilize this machine with a one slot item? It's going to be hard to get nozzle tips or fasteners or anything of that sort. How do I get these out? Well, we actually send, I want to say it's 25 pie bins out with every Pro Stock purchase, and put those items in there. Small batteries, anything. Put them in that bin, place them in that one slot, and that way employees can take that pie bin out, get their item out, and they can replace that pie bin. So those you can recycle those. If you do like how those vend and you want to purchase more, get with your account manager. They can sell you some more of those. Those are for purchase, but they're great tools for one slot items. They make it a lot easier than having to try to dig into a Pro Stock bin to get a smaller item out. So if you need to add gloves or add hand sanitizer, whatever you might need, how do you do it? So a Pro Stock is a little different than the other three machines. So the other three machines, we can just assign those items just like we did with the toolbox. With the Pro Stock, it's a little different, and I'll show you how. So back to our database here, if I go to a Pro Stock, what we'll want to do is we'll want to find an open slot here. So say for instance, I see this 12 right here. So you open it up, and again, if there's already an item in here, you're going to set the quantity to 0 before you add your item number. But with this, there's no item in, so it's free to assign. So I just click on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my drop-down menu, and I'm going to assign my item number. Now, here's where a Pro Stock is different than the other machines. So Pro Stocks operate off of primary bins and secondary bins. So if this was the only item that I had in this machine, and I should say the first item of this sort that's in a Pro Stock machine, this bin type right here, I'm going to want to set to as primary, because you always set the first one as a primary. All right. Since I already have another one, as you can see right here on slot 20, this now will become a secondary bin, because this is my primary bin right here. So I would just set it as a secondary, and I would save it. When I would save it, it'll go into the database right there. So just keep that in mind, that you will have to assign one as a primary bin and then assign the other one as everything else as a secondary bin. So now that we have assigned this to in our database, now comes the hardware part. So after we have assigned that, you're going to have to see how many slots did you pull or where the bin dividers are supposed to be from that database. And what you'll need to do is pull your chopsticks or dividers if you need more room. And when we say chopsticks and dividers, chopsticks are the actual railing system that is in place on those Pro Stock platters. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. That's what holds those dividers. So you'll want to remove that divider and then pop out the top chopstick and the bottom chopstick to increase the size of that bin. If you need to actually reduce the size, then you'll need to put that top chopstick and bottom chopstick back in and slide a divider back in there. Once you have that appropriate size bin, you can go ahead and stock your product and put the quantity in the database or on the ATR, and you're going to be good to vend at that point. So again, ProStock's a little different than the other 3 machines that we're going to show you, but I just wanted to point that out that you will need to assign a primary bin or a secondary bin for all of that. So now a locker, ProLock. So these can also be medium or high security machines. We'll get to that in a second on what that means, but this is basically 24 doors, customize it how you want. Larger items, you can join those doors together. Again, these go top to bottom when we adjoin them. They can't go left to right. So just keep that in mind as well. Another minimal touching machine, and these are amazing for stocking mass product. So they're great for putting a lot more boxes of gloves, a lot more boxes of respirators, whatever you need. And these can also be utilized for check-in, check-out too, for durable items as well. So you keep hearing us talk about medium security and high security. What does that mean? So medium security means we can put 2 or more items inside each bin. And basically when an employee comes up, they're going to check out if they need a respirator mask, and maybe there's 10 in there. The machine is then going to prompt them how many you're taking. So they could take 10 if they wanted to and say they're taking 1. Of course, it would be reflected in the report because we would know who got in that machine or in that bin. But just keep that in mind. That's why that is medium security if you're putting 2 or more items in there. High security is 1 item per bin. That means when they make a transaction, there's only 1 item possible that they can take. So it is high security because we know exactly how many they are taking. Some of the benefits, we kind of already discussed this. It's great for a lot of product stock. If like the Clorox wipes, people are stocking 12, 24 of these sometimes. It's great to put these in mass bulk in a bin. So that's one of the big benefits of this is the amount that it can stock during replenishment. And another thing is there's no repackaging required. You don't have to pull plastic toward the top for any gloves or safety glasses. You're not having to roll any gloves like socks. None of that stuff. You can just basically throw your inventory in there. So it's a really fast machine to replenish, and it can hold a lot of product. So some huge benefits there. Make sure that you're leaving enough space and making this easy to retrieve product in here as well. Make sure also these lockers can be very deep toward the back to accommodate this amount of product. So make sure you're putting your product toward the door. That way it's easier for the employee to grab and go. They're not having to get down and reach their arm all the way in the back and try to struggle to get product. So try to put everything toward the front if possible. I know it's tempting to stock from the back to the front, but if you can, if you're not going to utilize that whole locker, try to put everything toward the front to make it easier on them. Basically allow employees to safely store personal items. So basically we use the airport workers as an example here. So many of our runway folks, they use headsets, they have directional wands, safety vests, everything that they get every single day to do their job. And we get the question, can we put all of this in one bin instead of having to put different part numbers in different bins? Yes, you can. You can actually make a package number. So maybe, part 1112 is it consists of all of these items, and that's perfectly fine. You can vend it that way. So when they open that locker, they have all of their equipment in one bin. If you would like to vend different items within the same same bin, you can do that as well. It's going to vend more of like a multi-store versus a ProLock traditional vending, but you can do that. Just make sure your bin data reflects that. That way it's all set up and you can record the correct transaction for that bin. So how do you add new items with this? So this is going to act just like we did with the toolbox. So if I go back to my CribMaster client here, and I go up to a ProLock, as you can see, what I would do is I would just find an appropriate slot here that was open. And then I would pick it and I would just assign my item number right here and click save. So it's just like a toolbox. You're just picking what bin you would like to assign an item number to, and you would assign it and hit save. It's very simple. Now, if you are adjoining doors, like you can see on the first one, just remember on that bin data, you have to tell it how many doors are adjoined. So like if the first and second door are adjoined together, it's 15-01, but since there's 2 doors adjoined, it's -2. And then we delete the bin that would be 15-02. So, and we're going to get more into the numbering system on later webinars, but just so you are aware in case you do have to utilize a 2-door locker, that's how we do it, but you would just put them in your item number there. So now that we do that, throw your, or now that we did that, I should say, we now throw our product in our locker, add the quantity in, and you're ready to vend. So it's very simple, it's very quick for that locker. And lastly, we're gonna get into the weigh station here. So this is our scale machine. You know, very popular. You can place over 100 bins in a double door weigh station. So you can really utilize the space in this, and it's free issue. So it's good that someone can open up the left side of the door, take what they need, right side of the door, take what they need, and get it all in one whack. They don't have to make multiple transactions. So let's get into some specifics here. So our our most popular scales is a 5 and a 25 pound. Sometimes we see the 50 pound scale, so we'll just kind of discuss a little bit on these. Your 5 pound scale really needs to be for your lightweight items. These are for like nitrile gloves, the hand wipes, the nozzle tips, nuts, bolts, something that's very light that we need to recognize individual items that don't have a lot of weight to them. Your 25 pound scales, we want to really save for your heavier items, or boxes of gloves, boxes of grinding disc, anything of that sort where it's going to be heavier than that 5 pound threshold. So that's what we utilize that for. And then usually 50 pounds, we really save these for welding rods or blocks of iron or anything that's really going to be a really heavy item. So keep that in mind whenever you're laying out your weigh station. I wouldn't put nozzle tips in a 25 pound bin. So just keep that in mind. So now we have a question for you guys, a live poll. So and it's, if you want to vend 500 small nozzle tips that total 15 pounds, which one would you use? Should you use one 25 pound bin scale, or do you use 3 5 pound scales? And we'll allow you guys to take the little pop quiz.
We have a ton of answers coming in.
Ton of answers. That's good. All right. Patience, which one's the winner?
Looks like use 3 5 pound scales is in the lead at 88%.
That is it. So the reason that is good is with a 25 pound scale, just because it's 15 pounds and we want to dump a whole lot in there, because there are 5 pounds, it won't actually register that individual nozzle tip. So you're going to have a lot of nozzle tips that would just be taken and not shown in the report. Reason we want to use the, yeah, all right, 88%, good, yeah. We want to use the smaller scales. This way we can actually register and read these individual nozzle tips and keep our transactions as close to 100% correct as possible. So definitely utilize that. If you are going to vend these light items, use more small bins of the 5 pound scale than to use a larger scale. When you use that larger scale, it really needs to be used for the larger items in there. All right, so nitrile gloves on this. Use 5 pound scales for these. If you're going to do boxes of them, use the 25 pound scales. It'll be a lot easier, a lot more accurate. And for the heavier gloves, obviously use the 25 pound scales. You can fit more in there and it will usually read there within that threshold. If you're having a problem with your weigh station with gloves coming out or employees kind of going through them and trying to find a left glove and a right glove, and they're kind of making a mess or throwing gloves out, or maybe you're seeing some false transactions because gloves are knocked out of a bin from employees kind of messing with them, what I always recommend is make it easy for them. Fold them like a sock if possible, or bend them and fold them in half, tie a rubber band around them, anything to where the employees can just grab and go a quick pair of gloves. This will help them from trying to pick out a left pair or left hand and a right hand. So keep that in mind. If you're seeing that issue, just go ahead and try to almost pre-package it for them. Safety glasses. We usually put these in a 5-pound scale. No need to remove the plastic. We get this question a lot of, do I have to take them out of the protective plastic? No, you don't. They're perfectly fine with that. And we also get the question of, if you have a box of 12 and maybe 2 glasses had the plastic come off, do you have to take the plastic off the other 10 to make them like items? No. And the reason why is that plastic is so light that it doesn't affect the weight of that safety, each safety glass pair. So you can actually just throw them in there and that is okay. So don't worry if some of the plastic does come off a pair or 2. With that being said, cardboard. Cardboard is different. So if you have safety glasses that are in a box, they need to be like items. So you either need to take all the safety glasses out of the box, or you need to vend all the safety glasses in their boxes, because cardboard does have a significant amount of weight to it to where it can throw off the transactions. So you can't put half in with a box and half without a box. So keep that in mind. Bulk boxes. So we really want to use these in 25-pound scales. We've kind of touched on this before. And we don't want to combine the bulk boxes with individual use items. So if you have a box of respirators, then keep the box of respirators in a box. Don't take some out and put it in your bin with the box, because the unit weight is going to be registered off of that box of respirators, not the individual respirator. And again, that cardboard box is going to carry weight, so it's going to throw it off. One good thing about this weigh station is you can designate bins for boxes, and you can even designate a bin for individual usage. This is very common. So you will see a bin that might have 5 boxes of respirators, and you might see a bin that has 20 individual respirators in it. That's perfectly fine. It's very common. So with this, also heavier items, we get that question of, can I put them on a heavy shelf or a top shelf if it's heavy? You can, and it will register and the scale will work. With that being said, I would put these on the lower level if possible. Reason why is it can be a safety issue if someone is trying to reach over their head for a larger item. We don't want that item to fall on anyone or hurt their arms, them trying to stretch and pick something up at arm level. And as well as it can be difficult too with some of the bins on a top shelf, trying to dig in a middle row or something to get product. So we really want to put that stuff on the lower level and keep it safe. How do you add new items to a weigh station? Just like with the other, with the toolbox and the Pro Lock, if we go into our client here and we go to a weigh station, the first thing we'll want to do is find an open bin. If there's not an open bin, you'll want to set this quantity right here, the items in bin, set that to 0 and change your item. Hit save. That item is now registered in this bin. Okay? So now that it's in here, this is where a weigh station is a tad different as well. So after we do that, you're obviously going to want to make sure, and before we make that change, we really want to make sure the old product is out. So that bin is empty whenever we make that change. Now that we've made that change, you'll want to go into admin and adjust. You're going to want to 0 that bin. So once that bin is 0'd, then place your new items that you just entered in the database, place that item into that bin, and then you're going to want to adjust that in. So under admin adjust mode, enter in that new quantity that you just put in, whether it's 10, 12, 15, whatever it might be, you want to put that in. You're going to get a new unit weight on that screen, and that is now going to be ready to vend. So it's a very simple process, but you got to follow those steps if you want that to work correctly in your weigh station. All right, and with that being said, I am going to turn this back over to Amanda and Patience for questions and answers.
All right, thanks, Mark. Okay, got a few questions coming in. If you have any others, feel free to type them into the Q&A box. So first question, does the coil unit detect if an item has not dispensed into the hopper?
Could you repeat that one more time, Amanda?
Does the coil unit detect if an item has not dispensed?
Yes, it does. So each one of those coil machines has a little laser light that's in front of the drop box. So basically, if it does not break that laser, it will not register a transaction. So that laser being broken by the product is what will detect if the product dropped or not.
Okay. What does temporary mean when you set up the bins in the pro stock instead of primary or secondary?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure what temporary means. We don't utilize that on with our pro stock. So everything is just a primary or secondary that we utilize on that. So I'm not sure actually what a temporary would be utilized for, but we can definitely find that out for you if you would like.
Okay, yeah, we can take that one as a follow-up and get back to you. Can you please explain how to group bins for a toolbox machine?
We can. That's something we'll actually answer offline because it can be. There's a couple of steps that need to be involved with that, but we can definitely answer that one offline.
All right, Harad, we'll get back to you on that one. Sorry, let me start. Okay, a question from Scott Dennis. Is the detector for toolbox new? Can old toolbox add the laser?
I'm not actually sure when the laser was put into the toolbox, but it has been around for a while. So as long as I have been at CribMaster, we have had the laser detection on when a product drops. So if you have a toolbox that's at least within the last 8 years, I know it does have that. That comes from AMS. So that is not something we at CribMaster put in. That comes from the AMS box itself.
Would you require the spec weight of each item to calibrate the unit during setup?
Say that one more time, Amanda.
Sorry about that. Would you require the spec weight of each item to calibrate the unit during setup?
No, you don't have to do that. We wouldn't have to know the spec weight of it. Basically, what we would do is when we are going to set it up, the scales are already calibrated when they come from the factory. So what we do is we're just going to zero all of the bins out upon setup. And then we're going to put the product in and we would just adjust the quantity. And that's going to give us a unit weight right there. And you'll know if it's over the threshold or not, but you can pretty much know if it's a lighter item, if it's going to fit in that 5-pound bin, or if it's a heavier item, you're going to go to the 25-pound bin. But you don't necessarily have to have the spec weight. You can find that out from our software, actually.
Okay. And then, okay, is there a limit on how many secondary bins you can have?
No, as long as you have your primary bin, there's a limit on that. You can only have one primary bin. As far as the secondary bins, the rest of that product, of that item number, are going to be secondary bins. So there's no limit on that, but there is a limit on a primary bin.
Okay. And the limit is one primary, right, Mark?
That's correct. Correct.
Okay, and the last question, do 25 and 50-pound scales take up more space?
No, so you can put any scale on any size bin. The scales are all the same exact size, whether it's a 5-pound, 25-pound, or 50-pound. Your bin size that you actually choose to put on that scale can all vary. Obviously, with a 25-pound or especially a 50-pound, you're going to want probably a larger style bin. But it's all on your bin size, not your scale size. But usually in the 50-pound scales, more times than not are for the welding rods. So those are usually the tubes that we put on the 50-pound scales usually.
Okay, thank you. A question from Porfirio. Would you offer more webinars? Yes, I can take this one. So we are working to build out our webinar schedule for the next couple months. So we definitely are interested in what you guys want to learn about. We'll continue to do webinars about different software features. Hardware is one that it's a little harder to do over webinars, but we can certainly take your requests and we'll figure out how we can deliver that to you guys in a good way. So if you have ideas or things you want to see, feel free to chat them in the chat box here or reach out to whoever you work with on sales or in tech support, and they'll get back to us with that feedback. So we definitely want to continue doing this content. Just let us know what you're looking for. That's all the questions I got. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up? Going once, going twice. Okay, reporting webinars. Okay. Going 3 times. Any other feedback or questions for Mark? No? Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming today. This is the end of our Making the Most of Your Supplies series, but based on feedback from you, it seems like this was a really popular opportunity for you guys, and we love obviously getting a chance to hear your feedback and your questions. So like I said, definitely look out for more information about future webinars to come. As Patience mentioned earlier, we recorded everything, so we'll send it out via email, and we're also posting all of the recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review something or share it with colleagues, definitely check it out. And we hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.